I'm going to show you how to create a beautiful vertical navigation with icons. That navigation is sticky and it can expand and collapse just like the WordPress menu. And we'll build that
with Elementor Pro.
Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at what we're going to build today. So as you can see, we have a vertical sticky navigation with some icons. So I can scroll and it stays sticky. Now, I've already covered that in a couple of tutorials, but today this is something a bit different. Now, if I click on collapse, there you go, it collapses. And the thing is, if I click on another item, it's going to remember that you want to have the collapsed version. So I can change the pages and it stays collapsed. And if I want to go back to extended, I just click back on extended and it's going to remember I want to stay extended. So once again, let me click on dashboard and then on identity. And as you can see, it stays persistent. Actually, it's the same behavior we found in the WordPress admin. So here I have collapse menu, I can collapse it, or I can just extend it. So this is what we're going to build today. If we go to the mobile and the tablet versions, as you can see, we revert back to a regular navigation. And like this. And we only keep the vertical navigation for the desktop version. Now, I must warn you that the navigation is not as snappy as what you find in WordPress. So if I go back to WordPress, you see it's instant. If you go here, it takes like a fraction of a second to actually perform the action. That may be because I'm using the storage from HTML5 and I'm using some JavaScript to make sure the whole system remembers if you prefer the collapsed or extended version. So there may be a better way to do this, and if you know, let me know in the comments, and probably in the future I'll come up with a better solution. But for the time being, actually the reason of this tutorial is because someone in my private group asked for that specific solution. So I started looking for it. And as you know, I like to create navigation for WordPress and Elementor. I've created quite a few tutorials now. So I couldn't find a solution first, so I kept trying because I don't like when I don't find it, and I came up with this solution. So once again, we might have an updated tutorial in the future, but in the meantime, if you want to get your hands dirty and have fun with this system, then follow on. So what do you need to complete this tutorial? Well, first we have some prerequisites. You need to use the Astra theme. The free version is fine. Same for Elementor free, although we need the pro, but we'll come to that in a moment. You also need to download and install premium add-ons for Elementor, the free version, and simple custom CSS and JS, the free version also. And you need Elementor Pro, which is a premium tool. Now, why do we need Elementor Pro? Well, first of all, we need to take care of our header and our footer, and that comes with the Pro version. And also, we actually use some pop-ups for this type of navigation. We'll use a few pop-ups. So Elementor Pro, if you know my channel, it's definitely something you should invest in if you're serious about creating websites. And it's $49 per year if you want to have one website. For 3 websites, it's $99. And for 1,000 websites, you pay $199 a year. And what I usually tell people that tell me, okay, it's still a lot of money for them, just work on a project, sell a project, and it's going to pay itself on the first project. What else are we going to talk about today? So these are the steps we're going to take to complete this tutorial. First of all, we're going to create our pop-up for the mobile full screen navigation. Then we'll take care of our header and footer. Then we'll adjust our single page template, and I'll come back to that. Next, we'll create our extended navigation and our collapsed navigation. So as a reminder, this is what we want to build, and this is what we have for the moment. So let's get started. Prerequisites. So the first thing you want to do is to install the plugins that we mentioned. So for that, go to plugins, click on add new, and I've already installed the plugins, but basically, if you're not familiar, just click on add new, and in the search engines, you can type those names, except for Elementor Pro, which you have to purchase and download separately. But I've already installed Elementor, Elementor Pro, premium add-ons for Elementor, and simple custom CSS and JS. So make sure you install those plugins and activate. Next, we want to take care of our premium add-ons for Elementor settings. So just click on settings, and by default, all widgets are installed, but we don't need all of that. We don't want any bloat. So I'm just going to tick enable, disable all. It's a toggle, so everything is disabled. And the only thing I want to enable is premium button. So it's the second on the list here, premium button. Make sure you do that and click on save settings, and it's saved. Okay, so next we want to go to appearance, themes, and you want to add and activate the Astra theme. So I've already done it. It's already installed and activated, but it's the same procedure, just like for the plugins. Click on add new, and then you will be presented with a new page with a search engine. Just type Astra and look at the thumbnails, the same thumbnails, install and activate that one. Next, we want to create our collapsed and extended pop-ups. We're not going to style those now, but we need to just publish it because we need the IDs for those pop-ups, and you'll understand in a moment. So for that, go to templates, pop-ups, and you'll be presented with this screen. Now, all we need to do is to add a new pop-up. So click on add new, and make sure pop-up is selected, and we're just going to give it a name. I'm going to call it pop-up collapsed vertical menu icons. Make sure collapsed is in the name because it's going to make it easier later on in this tutorial. So collapsed vertical menu icons, create templates. Okay, and we don't need any of that. So we're just going to publish it. We're not going to add anything. Well, you can add just the one column to get started, but we're not going to style it now. So add just one column, click on publish, and then for the conditions, we want to add it on the entire website. Click next. We want it to load on page load. Click next. And where it says show devices, we want to activate, and we want to remove the tablet and the mobile versions because we only want those pop-ups in the desktop version. So save and close. Okay, and we'll start that in a moment. So let's go back to WordPress. So exit to dashboard, and then back to templates, pop-ups. Okay, so let's create the extended version now. So once again, click on add new, make sure pop-up is selected. And this time I'm just going to change it to pop-up extended vertical menu icons. Make sure it's got extended in the name. Click on create template. Okay, and once again, we don't want any of that. So I'm just going to click on the plus, add a one column structure. And for the time being, I'm just going to publish, add conditions. So we want to include it on the entire website, just exactly as the previous one. Then in the next screen, we want to activate on page load. And then next, we want to activate show on device, and you want to remove the mobile and tablet versions and only keep the desktop version. So save and close. So let's go back to our dashboard. And next, we want to click on custom CSS and JS. Actually, just hover over the name with your mouse. And then we want to click on add custom JS. So make sure it's this one, add custom JS. Okay, so let me click. So we're going to give it a title, and I'm going to call it persistent navigation. We can remove all of that code here, and all you have to do is go on the companion blog post. You'll find the link in the description below, and you will find the code that you need to paste here. Now, JavaScript is not one of my strong points. I really want to get better at JavaScript, so I'm going to try to explain quickly, but this is not going to be a course about JavaScript. So basically, we're checking the Windows width, and if it's above 1024 pixels, we want to execute the code that's in here. If not, we'll execute the code that's in here. So basically, this is going to be for the desktop, and this is to make sure that the mobile and tablet versions don't get any of that. So basically, we are creating a variable, and that variable is going to get a value, and that value is going to be either extended or collapsed. And based on whether the value is extended or collapsed, it's going to show the navigation in the collapsed or extended mode. So that was for the short version. So basically, as you can see, there are some elements we need to replace. So I've I've actually created this replace ID just to make sure you know you have to replace this code. But don't worry, for the time being, all you have to do is copy and paste. Now, how do we find the ID we need to replace this with? Well, let's go back one step. And if you go into the left navigation, now we can go to templates, pop-ups. And because we've already created the collapsed and extended pop-ups, we have both codes here. As you can see, the extended vertical, the extended version is going to be the code 3615, and the collapsed, so let me go here, the collapsed version is going to be 3612. So why do we need that? Well, if we go back here, you can see in the code it says if the navigation is collapsed, basically, then we want to hide the extended version pop-up and vice versa. So on the first one, you need to get the code for the extended version. So if I go back, this is the extended version and it's 3615. Yours is going to be different. So make sure you check what your ID is. But basically just get the ID from the extended version of the pop-up. So 3615. So let me go back and I'm just going to click on replace ID and change that to 3615. And then in the code it says else. So basically it's just the only code that's left. So it's going to be the collapsed code, the collapsed ID. So let me go back. As we can see, collapse is this line here, and it's 3612. Once again, it's going to be different for you. So let me go back, click on replace ID, and change this to 3612. Now, some other things I want you to see is that I've given some names to the variables, and we'll see a little bit later in this tutorial what happens if you make a mistake and you want to change, because those values are going to be stored in the browser, so you might get some errors. So, but we'll come back to that at the end of this tutorial. But for the time being, this is all you need. So with that out of the way, now here we want to keep it internal. We want to add the code in the footer. Why? Because we're going to hide the header for the desktop version, so we want the code to be in the footer. And for the rest, just click on publish. Okay, so that's it for the prerequisites, and now we can move to our next segment, full screen mobile navigation. So as you can see here in this segment, we're going to take care of the pop-up full screen navigation. So for that, let's go back to WordPress, and then you want to go to templates, pop-ups once again. And as you can see, I already have a few pop-ups, but you probably only have a couple if you just followed this tutorial. So don't pay attention to the other pop-ups. And basically, you would do the same thing. You would click on add new, give it a name. So I would call it pop-up full screen navigation, something like that. Now I've already created it, so we're going to open that one. So mine is pop-up full screen navigation. So I'm going to click on edit with Elementor. Okay, and as you can see, I've already pre-styled and added the elements. But basically what I did is I clicked on the widgets icon here at the top left of the window. And then I just typed icon list. I dragged an icon list. Now I know you could use navigation because the real menu is nav. So you have nav menu. So I could have added that and start styling it, but because I want to use icons, and because now you can give any element a header tag, then I just used an icon list. So I'm not going to redo everything, but you get the idea. So I just dragged an icon list here, and then, so I'm going to remove that one, and then I style it to my liking. Now, yours is going to be different, but basically, if I click on edit the list, you can see here, I have each element of the list. I can add an item if I wanted, and as you can see, it appears here at the bottom. I can click on an icon and select a different icon, and it would reflect here. Okay, so let me remove that. But let me show you with dashboard, for example. So I picked that icon, I gave it a name, and then here in the navigation, I linked it to a page I have on my website. And that's all there is to it. So actually, this is going to help us, because you could create a regular navigation, but we want some consistency. We want to keep the icons, even though this is going to be for the mobile and the tablet version. But even though it doesn't have that sticky vertical navigation, because it would make no sense in portrait mode on one of those devices, still we want to keep the consistency with the icons. So if you build it in that stage, you can just copy and paste it in the later stages, sorry, as you'll see in a moment. So basically this is my page, and the first time you want to publish, my pop-up, the first time you want to publish it, it's going to ask you to display some conditions. Now, like I said, now with this version of Elementor, and it's been a few versions already, you can add a header tag. So if you click on the section here, so let me open the navigator. If you have your section selected, by the way, if you don't know how to open the navigator, you can just click on the navigator icon in the bottom left corner of the screen, or you can use the shortcut Command plus I on a Mac, and I guess Control plus I on a desktop, or on a PC. So you can also just click on the 6 dots here to select your section, but I like to use the navigator. So with this section selected, you're on the first tab, layout, and you can give it a tag of header, just to let Google know this is a header, this is a navigation. Okay, so the first time you are going to publish, it's going to open this window here, and it will be just like this. Just like we did for the previous steps, you want to add a condition. So here I want to add it on the entire website. I'm not going to do on page load because it's going to be triggered by a click, so I don't need to add that here. And then I can decide if I want to show it on all the devices or not. For the time being, I'm just going to save and close, but of course you can tweak per device you want to show it on. But here I'm going to show it on the tablet and the mobile. Actually, I could remove in the conditions, I could go to the last step and, oops, sorry, let me do that once again. I could just show on the tablet and the mobile, but I'm not going to do that now because I still need to interact with it in the Elementor window. So for the time being, I'm just going to keep it like that. Save and close. Okay, so basically that's it for this segment. That's all you have to do for this part. Header and footer. So in this segment, we're going to take care of our header and footer. So for that, let's go back into WordPress. Then you want to go to Templates, Theme Builder, and here we're going to create a new header and a new footer. So those are going to replace the header and the footer from your WordPress theme. And if you followed along, you've installed Astra. So this is going to replace the header and the footer from Astra. Now, I've already created it, but it's pretty straightforward. So for header, you go to the header tab, click on Add New, and just give it a name, and it's going to open the Elementor window. And you do exactly the same for footer. You just go to the footer tab. Okay, so like I said, I've already created it, so I'm just going to show you. So this is the header, but I'm not going to use that header. So let me remove this. I'm going to use a custom header. Now, you can create your own, and it's pretty easy to do. I've already created one. So I'm using the pre-style header here. And if you're wondering, I'm using a tool called Wirementor, which I've built. So this is full disclaimer. I built this tool, and basically it's a prototyping tool just to go faster when you create projects. So this is where I'm copying it from. You're not going to find this in your WordPress install. Now, you don't have to use this. You can totally do it for free. But I just want to make this faster because it's already going to be a long tutorial. So I'm trying to go faster. So I'm just going to copy this block and I'm going to paste it. Okay, and voila, this is my navigation. But if you want to recreate it, basically it's a section with 2 columns. And then I've just added an image for the logo, and I've added an icon that you can see here. I've added an icon, and I'm going to link it to the pop-up menu we created for the mobile and tablet version at the beginning of this tutorial. So let me just remove this. Once again, this is just an image and you want to make sure that you link it. So if you just, let me show you, if you just add an image, it's going to appear like that. Then you can select an image in your media library and then you need to link it. So let me remove that and show you. So with my image selected, I click on the dynamic tags icon and I'm just going to select site URL. Okay. And now for the icon here, I'm just going to click on the icon, make sure it's selected. And so it will be like this. Click on dynamic tags, then scroll down where you see pop-up, then click on the wrench icon, then click on where it says all, and then in the little search engine, you can type the name of the pop-up. Mine was called Fullscreen. So here it is. I'm going to select that and I'm going to update the page. But the first time you publish, you're not going to see this. As soon as you click on update, you will see that window that you should know by now, which is asking you where do you want to display your template. So basically it would be like this. We want to click on add condition, and by default it says include on the entire website, and this is what we want. So just save and close. Okay, now before we move on, there's one more step we need to take. So make sure you have your section selected. You can just click on the 6 dots here at the top, and with your section selected, we want to go to advanced, then responsive, and we want to make sure we don't show this on the desktop, because that's the whole purpose of this tutorial. We just want to show the vertical navigation on the desktop, so we are going to remove it here from the responsive options. So click on the hide where it says desktop, and it will be visible on the tablet and the mobile. Okay, so let me click on update. Okay, and now if I click on the navigation, as you can see, it loads the full screen window that we've created earlier on. So that's about it. Now we can do the same thing for the footer. So let me go back. As I said, you would go here to footer, click on add new, and then just give it a name. Like I said, I've already done it. So here we are, and I have my footer here. So what we want to do now, we want to click on edit section. So the 6 dots here. And once again, you can create pretty much any footer you want. Just create a new section and just style it the way you want. Okay. There are some default footers that you can get with Elementor Pro, so you could install those ones. But what's important is that you need to select your footer, then go to advanced, and don't pay attention to the class here. You don't need that, but we need an ID, and that ID is going to be my footer dash main. So my footer dash main. And it's very important that you keep it exactly like that, because it's linked to the code we pasted earlier on, the JavaScript code. So once again, my footer dash main. And once again, you find all those info in the companion blog post that's linked in the description below. So make sure you click on update, and there you go. So now we can move on to our next segment, single page template. So in this step, we're going to take care of our single page template. So for that, let's go to WordPress. And I just want to stress something, because in one of the tutorials, some people had issues because they were actually creating a page instead of a page template. So quickly, let me tell you the difference. The page is what you find here. You just create a page like you usually do in WordPress and Elementor, and that's fine. It's just content. But this is not what we're talking about here. We're going to take care of a page template. So it's the structure of the page, and you'll understand in a moment. So make sure, this is really important. Don't go to pages to do the step we're going to do now. Go to template theme builder. Okay. And then you want to click on the single tab. So click on single. And now you want to click on add new. So make sure single is selected in the first drop down. And then where it says select post type, you're going to select page. Now give it a name, and I've called it page template single dynamic. You may call it however you want, but you will need to find this back. So this is how I've called it. So click on create templates. Okay, and as usual, we don't want any of that, so I'm just going to close that, and we're going to create our own template. So let's create our own template. But first of all, what do we need to change the page template? Well, it's just because we need to give it an ID. It will make it easier to do what we want to do with the JavaScript code that we pasted in the beginning of this tutorial. So click on the plus sign, choose the one column structure, then make sure the section is selected by clicking on the 6 dots or by selecting the section in the navigator. And with the section selected, we can start styling it. So we want the content to be full width, column gaps, no gap. The heights, we want a minimum height of 100 VH, as you can see here. Then the column position, we want it to be stretched, vertical line top, and that's about it for the layout tab. Then we can move to the advanced tab, give it a 0 margin. So I'm just going to unlink the values. So to give it 0 and 0 padding. Now we want to do the same thing for the column. So click on the column here, column icon, or select the column in the navigator. And then we want to move to the advanced tab, and we're going to do the same thing. So unlink the margin values and the padding values to give it 0 everywhere. Okay, next you can click on the widgets icon at the top left, and in the search engine I'm just going to type post content, and I'm just going to drag it here. And as you can see, it loaded some content. So it's not really what I wanted to see. I want to see my homepage. So for that, I click on the settings gear icon at the bottom left corner of the window, and then where it says preview settings, I can just type the name of the homepage, and then I click on apply and preview. Okay, and now I have the preview. So it looks just exactly as what we have now. So why do we do this? Like I said, we're just going to add a very special ID. So click on section or the 6 dots, go to advanced, and where it says CSS ID, we're going to give it an ID of mynav-main. Once again, this is crucial that you have exactly the same name that you see here on screen. So mynav-main. And once again, you can find that in the companion blog post. Now we're going to publish, and it's going to ask us where do we want to show this layout. So you can include it in all the pages, then you can add another condition, you can include it in all the posts, and so on. You can add many different categories. Now, I would not advise to, for example, there is an option that says all singular. If you do this, it's going to use that template also for the 404 page or some other pages, but you don't want the post content on those pages. So I would do it separately, but at least for the pages and the posts, you're safe to do it like this. So I'm just going to click on save and close, and there you go. So we can move on to our next segment, vertical navigation. So in this segment, we're going to take care of our extended and our collapsed navigation. So for that, let's go back to WordPress, and then you want to go to templates, pop-ups. And if you recall, we've already created our pop-ups in the first step of this tutorial, but we didn't style it. So for that, first we want to take care of our extended pop-up. So click on edit with Elementor. And this is what you get. As I said, we did not style it. So the first thing you want to do is click on the 6 dots here to select the section or in the navigator. And then we want to go to height, minimum height, and we're going to give it 100 VH of height. Now, that's about it for the section. Now, right away, we can move to the pop-up settings. And for that, you go in the bottom left corner of the window, click on the gear icon, and now we have the pop-up settings. So first of all, we want to give it 300 pixels. And once again, this is really important that you keep 300 pixels because that is what is referenced in the JavaScript code that we're using. You can use a different number, but then you need to make sure it is reflected in the code. We pasted the JavaScript code. So for the time being, I advise you to just put 300 pixels. For the height, we want to select custom. Then we want to give it 100 VH. We want the position to be horizontally on the left-hand side. We don't want any overlay. We don't want any close button. And where it says entrance animation, make sure you select none. And same thing for the exit animation. So none to both. And where it says animation duration, I know we said none, but just to be on the safe side, just put 0. Now for the general settings, we want to give that pop-up a header tag. And that's about it for this part. Now for the style, we want to give it a classic background type and just choose the color that you want. I just didn't want it to be white because some pages are white, so I didn't want white on white. But feel free to choose any color that you wish, or even white if you want to. Next, this is personal preference. I'm just going to remove the box shadow. So I click on the back to default icon, and there you go. Okay, so let's move on to the advanced tab. We want to prevent closing on overlay, even though there's no overlay, but just to be on the safe side. And we want to prevent closing the pop-up on the escape key, because that would make no sense. You want this to be permanent and sticky. Okay, and next we want to unlink the margin values to give it a 0 margin on the top, right, bottom, and left. Okay, so next click on custom CSS, and once again we want to paste some code. Don't be afraid, just copy it from the companion blog post. Basically what this code does, it says the Z index or Z index of this pop-up is 1000. Why? Just because for the collapsed version is going to be 999, just to make sure that this is always on top, because there's a slight transition moment where you may see the collapsed pop-up and we don't want that. So just copy and paste this code. And when you're ready, click on update. Now the first time, once again, it should show you this screen, but we've already done it in a previous step, so you shouldn't have the problem. So just click on update and make sure if you click on the little arrow here next to update, if you go to the advanced rule, make sure that it only shows on desktop here at the bottom. So now we need to add some elements in our vertical navigation. But before we do that, click on the section or click on the 6 dots here. And with our section selected, we want to make sure that the column position is set to stretch. Okay, and then you want to select the column. So you can also click on the icon here. So make sure the column is selected, and where it says vertical line, we want to select space between. Very important. Okay, next you want to click on the widgets icon, and if you recall, first we have an image that we're going to use as a logo. So I'm just going to throw all the widgets here and then I'll style those. But just to make this video faster, I will show you the final result. So basically first I have an image and then I have an icon list. And as you can see, it put it here at the bottom because we said we want to space items with the space between option. So I'm going to select the widgets icon once again, and now I want to add a premium button. If you recall, it's the premium add-ons for Elementor, and it's the only widget that we activated. So I'm just going to drag this under the image, and actually, let me change the order. I want the navigation to be first, then the button, and then once again I want another icon list. So let's go back to the widget search engine icon lists, and this time I'm going to drag it under the button. So I have 4 elements. So you can see right out of the bat it doesn't look that good, but don't worry because we're going to style that. But you can see that the items are too close to the top and to the bottom edges. So let's click on our column icon, then go to the advanced tab, and we're going to unlink the padding values. And now we're going to give it a 30 pixels top and 30 pixels bottom. So it's already much better. Now you may say yes, but now it's close to the left edge and it doesn't look that good. I know that, but because we're using different widgets, they all have kind of a different way to manage the internal padding that they have. We're going to do it on a widget per widget basis. So for the time being, we just leave it like this. So I've styled all elements and I just replaced the image with the logo that I want to use. And now I want to link it to the home page. So it says link, click on custom URL, and then click on dynamic tags and select site URL. Okay, so now it's clickable and goes back to the home page. Now for the icon list, if you recall, we've actually used that icon list in the full screen navigation at the beginning of this tutorial. So all I did was I copied it from that page and from that pop-up, and I just pasted it here. But basically it's just a regular icon list, as you can see here. And then I just style the elements to the way I like it to be styled. Now this one is the button, so it's the premium button, but we don't want to make it look like a button. So if I go to the style tab, by default, this is how it looked. So you can see here, I couldn't see anything. So basically all I did was select the background color and drag the opacity all the way down. And then I selected a color for the text and an icon. And the icon, if you go to the content tab, by default, the icon is not activated. So you just click on icon and then you can choose any icon that you want. I just typed left and then you have a bunch of various of different icons. So I choose the chevron left because I want to show the movement of collapsing. If I go back to WordPress, it's the same type of behavior. Okay, so left, and once again, this is the premium button from the premium add-ons for Elementor, not the regular button. Okay, and one of the most important part is this one here. So as you can see, we have on-click event and you can activate it. Now, what is an on-click event? Well, basically it's for JavaScript. We want JavaScript to listen when we click on the button, and we want JavaScript to perform some actions. And those are the actions that you find in the code that we pasted at the beginning of this tutorial. So I'm not asking you to be a JavaScript guru, although I know that some of you watching are, so you will know exactly what this is all about. But fear not if you don't know anything about JavaScript. Basically, it's just what I said. It's going to trigger the behavior of the collapsed and extended versions, at least remembering the state. So click on yes, and then in the box that appears here, we're just going to paste some code. One more time, you find this code in the companion blog post, so I can show it to you here, but you'd be better off just going to the blog post and copying and pasting here. So as you can see, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but it uses the same value we have in the code we pasted at the beginning of this tutorial. So just click on update. There you go. And now we want to do the same thing for the collapsed version, but with some tweaks, of course. So I'm just going to leave this window open and you will need it also. And I'm just going to go to the collapsed version. So for that, you would probably go back and click on go to collapsed, edit with Elementor. And this is what you should get if you followed along exactly what I did in this tutorial. So we have our window with one column, but we didn't style it. So make sure we select the 6 dots or the section. Then you want to go to height, minimum height, 100 VH. Then click on the gear icon at the bottom left corner of the window. And now you have the pop-up settings. So this time we want to give it a width of 65 pixels, so very narrow. And then when it comes to height, you want to click on custom, select VH and give it 100 VH. You want the horizontal position to be left. You don't want any overlay. You don't want any close button. And once again, where it says entrance animation, select none. And the same for exit animation. Make sure you don't leave it on default, select none. And just to be on the safe side, put 0 where it says animation duration. General settings, we want to give it a header tag. And that's about it. Now for the background, I'm going to give it the same background color that I used for the extended version. So this is the color I want to use, but you may be using a different one. Next, I want to remove the box shadow. Once again, this is personal preference. And finally, I want to go to advanced. I want to prevent closing on overlay, prevent closing on escape key, and I'm going to unlink the margin values. Next, I want to click on custom CSS, and I'm going to paste some code that you find in the companion blog post. And basically it's just setting the Z index. So it's the spot where it stands, and it's going to stand under the extended version. So just copy this from the companion blog post. Make sure you save your work. And now we need to add some elements. But before we do that, once again, we want to select our section by clicking here or on the 6 dots. And where it says column position, we want to use stretch so that it goes all the way across vertically. And once again, let me click on update. And now instead of recreating everything, I'm just going to go back to the extended version. I'm going to right click on the column here. As you can see, the navigator, I'm going to copy the whole column. And then I go to the collapsed version. Let me expand this here in the navigator. Let me right click on the column and I'm going to click on paste. So now it adds a second column, but of course it's way too narrow so you can't see anything. So just right click on the first empty column and select delete. Okay, so now it looks better. We have our column, but we need to remove some text here. So I'm just going to select the icon lists here. And then I'm just going to remove all the labels, all the text. There you go, so looking much better. And we need to do the same thing for our button here. So if you have a hard time selecting it, you can always click here in the navigator. So I'm going to select the button and I'm just going to remove the text. But that's not all. If you recall, so in the extended version, we wanted to go this way. Now in the collapsed version, we don't want the same one. We want to go on the right hand side. So click on the icon. And as you can see, you can select the one looking to the right hand side. Just click on update to save our work. Okay, so that already looks much better. So now we want to scroll down and where it says on click event, we just want to change the code here. Actually, the only thing that changes from the extended version is that instead of collapsed, it should say extended. But once again, you can just remove the whole code and then copy and paste the code from the companion blog post. So this is the code. And now we need to link both pop-ups together. So if I go back to the extended version and I'm going to select the button here, then I want to go where it says link, click on dynamic tags, and then I'm going to scroll down to pop-up and then click on the wrench icon, then click on all, and I'm going to type collapsed because from the extended version, I want to link to the collapsed version. So click on collapse and let's save it. Now let's do the same thing for the collapsed version. So back to the collapsed version here, I want to select my button, my premium button, go to link, click on dynamic tags, scroll down to pop-up, click on the wrench icon, click on all, and then we're going to type extended. And if you name your pop-up the same way I advise you to do, then you will find it here. So pop-up extended and click on update. And this is the moment of truth. So let's go back to the front end and let's hit refresh. And there you go. So as you can see, it's looking good. I can scroll. So let me change. Let me go to identity. Okay. And now let me collapse the navigation. And let me go to dashboard. Then let me go to technical support. Let me go to visit us. And as you can see, it's persistent. Now I can go back to the extended version click on blog posts. And as you can see, it remembers my preferred setting. And now if you move on to the tablet version, as you can see, we have the regular navigation with the full screen navigation we created, and the same goes for the mobile smartphone version. So there you go. One more time, let's do it. Collapse, click on identity, and there you go. Debugging. Now a quick word about debugging. So if at any stage of this tutorial you make a mistake, you forget something, and then things seems to not be working, it may be due to the fact that your browser is keeping the element, the item that we set in the local storage. So just wanted to show you, if you're in Chrome, you can just right click on inspect, and you have the inspector here, and then you go to application, select storage, local storage, and your website, and you will see here the item, which is called state X or stat X, but actually it's state X, and then the value. So now here it says collapsed. If you see here, if I click here on to extend the version, now it says extended. So that's how the system knows which version to keep, extended or collapsed, throughout the browsing on the website. Now, because it's persistent, if you made a mistake, you might not see the changes reflected, although they are reflected, but your browser is still looking at the old value. So the tip for that, if you encounter that, is to go back to WordPress, go to custom CSS and JS code, open the code that we pasted in the beginning of this tutorial, and then here you're going to have to change the values. So nav status X would become nav status 1, state X becomes state 1. So basically you just replace the X by the number of version that you want to change. So let's check now, status, state, now status, and one more here. So it says now, instead of X, it says now status 1, state 1, state 1 of status 1 of status 1. Okay, and then when you're happy with that, you just click on update, but that's not all. So you need to go back to the extended version of our menu. So it's a pop-up, if you recall. Click on the premium button here that says collapse. Go to where we pasted the code, and instead of state X, it's going to be state 1. Okay, easy. And you need to do the same thing for the collapse version. So select the premium button and then replace the X by the number that you've used for the rest. And here now it's 1. And then you save all of that. Once you've done that, you're not done. You need to go to Elementor, Tools. Then you want to click on Regenerate Files here. It's going to regenerate the CSS. Then you want to save the changes. And then what I've noticed is that it can take from 20 seconds to 1 minute for the changes to be reflected. So if I go back, if I just refresh now, I'm not going to see anything. Actually, it's making me lie, so it went faster, but in the previous attempts I made, it took it actually a bit longer than that. So it may depend on various things, but if you don't see it happen here, then just wait for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, and it should be okay. Or you can just force a refresh. So on the Mac, it would be Command-Shift+R. So it would just flush everything and just make sure it reloads what's new. And now you can see I can remove the state X, for example. I'm going to delete that. And if I refresh now, state X won't come back. So it's only state 1. If you made several mistakes, so for example, when I was creating this tutorial, I had to do this like 25 times. So I ended up at state 25 or something. So you get the idea. Each and every time you're going to go to nav status 2, then 3, and so on, and you reflect this on nav status here, on state. You get the idea. All the steps we've just taken. So that's just to help you so that you don't go crazy. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I can't wait to see what you're gonna come up with. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please like it as it really helps growing this channel. And if you know someone that could benefit from this tutorial, please share it now. Now, like I said, there might be a better solution to do this, and I'll probably come up with an updated version of this tutorial, but at least I can get you started. And like anything WordPress and Elementor, there are many ways to do the same thing. So that's what's getting me excited to create these tutorials, is because I keep on refining them, and I'm pretty sure I'll come up with something better in the future. Now, if you want more tutorials as well as tips to grow your creative business or your creative career, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and smash the notification bell so that you don't miss anything. Now, building beautiful navigation is cool, but what about your branding? Well, I created a free brand guidelines template that you can download from my website. Now, initially, it was made for Affinity Designer software, which I've already talked about on this channel, but you can use it with Adobe Illustrator with a workaround. All you need to do is go to casino.com/branding and you'll find the direct link in the description below. So that's it for this video. I hope to see you. Yes, I'm talking about you. I hope to see you in the next one. And in the meantime, don't forget to invest
in your success.